This is Darling Street, and I am about to go into a studio with them in the next few days and do some shots for their band for their next album cover, the next songs that they're releasing, which I'm really excited about. I had a friend reach out to me and ask me if I'd be interested in this sort of job, which I said yes. And so I've been in conversation with one of the band members, and we've been organizing a time, a place, and all that sort of stuff to get the shoot ready. So I'm going to take you on the journey from here, which involves taking their idea, mood boarding it out, getting the shot list ready, and then eventually taking it into the studio and actually doing the shoot. And then afterwards, editing the shots to their liking, and then finally delivering the content to the client. So it's going to be a couple days. We're going to be jumping around in this video, and the first start of it is pretty much putting together the Miller Note, which is the program I like to use to mood board all my things. It's a free version that I use. I don't do the paid one just yet because I pretty much just cycle out my projects when I'm done with them. If I really want to hang on to them for any reason, I just save them as a PDF, so I've got access to the original file option. So yeah, let's jump into a little bit of planning. So we're starting a new board, so we're pretty much going to call this Darling Street, just so I know the name. It's going to try and assume what we need, but that's not going to work. So then we go into our templates here, more templates, and I like to scroll down and look for photography. And I actually like to do a photo plan, the shoot, instead of the mood board, because this is what a mood board looks like. It's a few ideas, which is nice, but I prefer the shoot format. So we use that. All right, now we can get started. So I'm actually going to use, here are some of the images that Sean, one of the members, sent me. So this is sort of what we're working with. Really fun, really just getting the band together, getting that group shot that they can use really for an album cover. So a lot of black and white, bit of color. So I assume what we're going to do is we're going to do a mix of the two. This type of shot here though with the beers and all that, love the idea, but the studio we're going to be in is going to be more something like these, where we're going to have some colored backdrops. So I'm actually going to drag a couple of these in. All right, so the beginnings of the Miller Note are here. So taking a look at it, I've just got standard information here about the shoot, what it's for, nothing in the photo brief really, so we're gonna get rid of that now. The workflow is pretty much finishing the mood board, which I'm pretty happy with. I'm gonna send it off to the clients and let them add their own photos and see if there's anything extra. Shot list, I've started over here, so we've got the individual members, just something for each colored backdrop right now, and then all these shots down here, they're pretty much going to be with the repeated for the same colored backdrops just to get some options, and then just a bunch of wide shots of the group facing cameras, facing away from the camera, facing each other, having a laugh, moving about. A little bit of slow shutter speed I think is really cool and very fun, especially with black and white when you do the edit later. I've got my list here of all the things I'm going to need, and I'll probably add to that as the days go by. But currently right now, and then last thing, into the mood board. This is the mood board that I've got. I've used a couple images that they actually picked out and they sent along, and then I've used images that are sort of inspired by that from Pinterest and online other places to build out this idea. I'm going to send that to them. Again, they can add whatever they want, give some feedback on that. And that's pretty much like the beginning of this journey for making the studio shoot happen. All right, I'm gonna show you what I'm bringing with me tonight, and then when we get to the studio, I'll do a little rundown of the things that they're supplying, which is really exciting because they have great stuff. But in terms of my main camera, we've also swapped over to the A7C now, so I really hope that I figured out matching the color as best as I could, or at least giving a pleasing image to look at. So fingers crossed. But bringing along my main camera, this is what I'm gonna shoot on. It's what we were recording on before, is my Sony A7 IV. And I've also got the 35mm prime paired with it. I really like that lens, so I think it's really crisp and clean, so I really want to use it, but depending on how wide I need to get, I'll actually, funnily enough, have the 20mm on the A7C that I can swap out, but what will most likely be my workhorse tonight is actually my 24-70 G Master 2. So 24 is great, 70 is also fantastic. I think it's going to give me the most versatility. I'm not too worried about needing this lens. I think the space is going to be too small for it, but I don't want to miss out on having the option for those really punched in shots. So I am bringing my 70 to 200 as well. Again, I actually don't really think I'm gonna end up using it, but I'd rather have it and not need it, you know? Then what I'm planning on bringing, just little extras, is my laptop, because what I want to do is use one of these cables to tether, so that way the band can see the photos that I'm taking. So I just think that's really nice. It makes the studio vibe a little bit more fun, because no, I'm not going around showing photos, being like, oh, here, squint, look at this, look at this, look at this. It's actually on the screen already, and they can really just like look over, take a look at it, and we can discuss and see if we want to redo shots or anything like that. I'm also going to be bringing, now I'm going to be using hopefully just constant light, but I will be bringing along my flash. I don't know if I'll use it, but just in case, I'm going to bring two. I think this one's a bit overkill, and it is the Godox AD200 Pro. Usually I'll bring this if I go for like an outdoor shoot, just to combat like harsh sunlight, but I don't know. So then I'll also be bringing along the Godox flash that sits on top of my camera. If I want to use both, which I don't think I will, but I will need to bring along my trigger. So use this for the AD200 if I decide to use it. I feel like just the on-camera flash might be really good, just to go for some of those like paparazzi shots, you know what I mean? So we'll take a look at how that could work, but if it's not powerful enough for all 5 members to be lit up, then I'm going to be really happy that I've brought along the AD200. Then just something for a little bit of fun, this little Ulanzi, I don't know how to pronounce that, Ulanzi. I've never really had to say that before. It's just a little light that can change colors. So it goes along the whole spectrum. Is that going to change? Yeah, so I can, if I want to get more of a green or a warmer tone, or reds or pinks, or really just like cast it, I can hold that up to the side of the face. So I'm pretty keen to just bring it along. I actually have a feeling that the lights I'm using today are, what is it, bifocal, so they use all the different colors anyway, but again, rather have it, not need it. Then pretty much for the more vlog style stuff, I'm wearing the DJI Mic 2 at the moment. We're probably going to swap that out and just go to a shotgun mic. This is the ECM B10, I believe. Not a bad mic, really happy. It sits on the A7C pretty nicely. Got a little one of these filter just to clean the lenses, and then a little tripod Joby just to set up the A7C, so we can just kind of have that sitting and recording. It might be time lapses, it might be some talk to camera. I'm not really sure right now. The main focus is the band. And that's everything that I'm going to be bringing along with me. So let's pack it up into the bag and get ready to go. All right, I'm very excited. We're going to head off to the studio now. So it's late night, 7 o'clock, 2 hours in the studio. And we're just going to have fun with it and hope that everything turns out okay. So see you when we get there. If you can see me. My multimeter is telling me that I am so underexposed. Maybe if I just... Oh, no, that's my shutter speed. Maybe if I just punch the ISO. How far can the ISO go on the A7C? Oh, there we go. I don't know if that looks better. I've never had to use the A7C for like video really. It's always been my A7 IV, which has dual native ISO. I don't know what we're introducing to this clip right now. So let's go to the studio. I love this studio, and I don't know how much, I don't think I got any of it from downstairs, but this looks so cool. It's so affordable. Like, honestly, they could charge even more, even though I know they put their prices up already, but it's such a cool place. So yeah, so we've got now we have 3 lights. We've got our 2 main lights that we're going to use, our key lights. We've got this new big boy here that we're going to use, which we can do some colors with. And then we've got the backdrops, paper wires, we're going to use that. And I don't know where I'm going to clamp you, because I've got the clamp on this right now, but pretty much going to bring down none of it, keep it as white for now, and then switch these on and just start doing some test shots, I guess. So let's get you set up and see what happens. All right, so one thing that you should always remember to do is charge your laptop. So, or bring your charger. So I didn't do either of those, so now I can't have my laptop open up where when I take a photo, it'll come up for them to see to make it easier. So first lesson learned, always bring your charger, check that you charged every electronic. All right, welcome back to the studio. So we are back yesterday. Last night was the shoot and it went really well. I'm really happy with all the photos that we got, and I have basically come into today ready to put in those final edits. So all I've really done is I have thrown all the photos into Lightroom, and then what I've done is I've categorized them. I've gone through, I've sifted, culled all the things, all the photos that are basically blurry, someone's blinking, it doesn't look quite right, or you know, duplicates where you don't really need that many and you might have been on a high burst to get a jumping shot or something like that. So we've gone through, done the cull, and brought it really down, being as brutal as I can, but even still I could probably go a bit further, but brought it all the way down to about 43 photos. One of the photos, this one, is not going to be one that I would send off, and you can tell because over here the band member, she's kind of got this squint in her eye. I've caught her going between, you know, looking at the camera like everybody else. And so I'm actually going to use this as a base to edit my photos. Now down the bottom here, what I've got is everything I did on a white backdrop, and then across we've got everything we did on the red backdrop. They're probably going to have the same edit. My goal is to send them a clean edit and then to send them a black and white edit. And then I might use a preset that I have to maybe do like a film look sort of thing, but I'm not too worried about that right now. And then on the end here, I've got everything with the black backdrop with a flash that I was using. The footage cut out, my camera ran out of battery before I could, you know, get BTS behind the scenes of that. So anyway, the point here is that's going to be our black and white mainly. I'll do black and white right at the end because I have a black and white preset that I've made for myself that I will just pretty much slap on and tweak and check. So let's get straight into this. What I'm going to do, first of all, personally for me, is I'm going to start with my basic alterations here. I'm going to keep my white balance exactly as it is for now. I don't really want to influence the whole image like that. I'm not going to change my tint. I'm going to go and I think, first of all, this is a little bit dark, so I'm actually going to just push my exposure ever so slightly. Something like that I think is good. And then my contrast, I'm also going to probably bring that down. I used to bring it up a lot, but I realized that by bringing it up here, I feel like I'm not giving myself enough room when I'm using my exposure, my curves, my tone curves. So what I actually do more of now is I actually bring down the exposure quite a bit. Somewhere around 30 is probably the highest that I would go, maybe a little bit more depending on what I'm looking for. It gives a bit of a fade. It takes out a lot of the shadows and the color, but it allows me to then bring it back in later a bit more intentionally. Anyway, so then we move on to the highlights. I'm not too fussed about that here. I usually, if I shoot it up, it's obviously not going to look that great because the room was pretty well lit. So I start bringing it down. I bring it pretty far down, around 50, somewhere 50, 60, because I really want everyone's skin to, oh, sorry. I really want everyone's skin to not have that sort of shine to it. Then the shadows, I'm going to bring the shadows up, but not too much. Probably something like around 30, maybe a bit more, maybe 35, because their suits, particularly for the two guys here, Seamus's one, his suit it's a blue jacket, and then we've got over here Paddy's, his is a black jacket, and so if I have the shadows all the way down, it actually makes Seamus's jacket look, well, black, which isn't the case. You know, he chose a blue one. I want to make sure that color sort of comes through, which we'll also add later in during our color grade. All right, the whites, I usually follow suit. I bring them down a bit. If I bring that up, it's starting to start effect. You know, over here it's going to start hitting people's faces, and things like shirts start to get blown out. So I'm just going to bring that down a touch, somewhere around 10 maybe. Just brings in a bit more of that detail. And then my blacks, I'm going to bring my blacks down, it looks like, I think. Actually, I'm probably not going to touch those. No, we'll bring the blacks. Only because it doesn't change. See, Seamus's suit doesn't go from blue to black like with my shadows. However, Patty's suit, it does bring more of that black in. Before it was maybe a bit faded, which is not what I wanted. Then I'm going to leave my textures the same. I don't really touch that too often, but I will play with my clarity. I like to bring it down just a little bit. Helps smooth out the skin. It saves me a little bit of time later on when I'm removing things. It means I remove a little bit less. And the dehaze, I'm actually going to bring down as well. Because if I bring it up, it puts a lot of that detail back into places I don't want. So only a small amount. It's probably not very noticeable, but when you're working at it, you sort of see a little bit more than anyone else would. And it brings the photo kind of all together. Now my vibrance, I'm going to push that pretty high, usually around 20, 25. And that's just going to hold a nice even balance of color. Not going to touch my saturation. I'm pretty happy with how that is. One thing I am going to do though is move on to my tone curves. Now my tone curves, I'm going to bring my blacks up. I just want to cut that. Probably only a little bit, and then I am going to dip this in. This is where I'm going to get some of my contrast, but I really want it in the mid-tones. I don't mind how all the shadows are looking right now, so I'm actually going to bring that down a touch there, and then I'm just ever so slightly going to push these highlights, because if I have it down, you can sort of see that there is this almost glossy tone to their skin and the background. So by pushing this back up, I don't know if you can see that, but I think it just brings a bit more of that light back into it. And I'm sort of happy with that. Maybe I'll bring that bit down. Somewhere around there. Keeps the warmth in the skin still. Great, that's the main thing I'm focusing on. I don't really want to do too much with the tone curve. I'm pretty happy with minor adjustments. Calibration, I'm mainly focusing on skin tone here. So I'm gonna go over to my red primary and I'm gonna bring it closer to orange. And you can see that sort of affects the skin. If I keep going, it's gonna turn them yellow. If I go the other way, it's gonna turn them more magenta. So I'm only going up a little bit to pull away from that magenta, and I'm gonna boost the saturation, maybe 10, maybe something like that, 9. It brings that kind of like warmth into the skin that everyone sort of has. I'm not really gonna play with anything else because not too many colors in here to mix. Color mixer, I usually would use the HSL sliders, but because really I'm pretty happy with how all the suits are looking and how the hair is looking, especially now that I've brought up those shadows, I actually just want to really focus on the skin because I've got multiple people here with different skin tones and I'm just worried about too much redness coming in. So I'm actually gonna go over to Patty. I'm gonna pick at his skin, which is a little bit pinkish, and I'm just going to ever so slightly bring that away and over to the more, not quite yellow, but maybe a bit, just slightly over really, just a fraction to remove that pink but not add too much yellow in and to keep a bit of the orange. If I go down, it'll desaturate. If I go up, it's going to put more in. So somewhere around there, I think. Let's just toggle that on and off. See how there's a bit of pink, especially if you look at Patty's skin. Very pink, let go. Yeah, it's a bit more yellowy greeny, but I think I prefer that to the pink because I think that starts to match everyone else's, like just sort of where the skin tone is sitting. I don't want it to look sunburnt. I'm just gonna leave that. I don't really need to play around with the colors too much more. This isn't a heavy color grade. This isn't a heavy edit. This is really just getting the picture that I took on the night to reflect what I'm going to provide for them. So I'm not really going too far into it. I used to edit really heavy colors when I was doing portraits and it would just, you know, mess up skin tones, mess up the whole color of the clothing. But right now we've got, you know, white backdrop, a kind of greenish yellow suit, a blue suit, and then it's black, black, and a bit of gray. So we're not working with too many colors here. I mean, we've got the eyes and the hair and all that, but this all looks pretty good. And then obviously the skin. All right, going into color grading, there's one thing I want to do, and it's really about this suit. And I reckon what I want to do is I want to add in some blue. So let's go over to here. We'll just, I don't know, sit it somewhere around middle blue. And then we're just gonna bring it, oh, then we're gonna bring it down only a touch. And the point of this is, again, we've got a blue suit, and now, without it, it's a little bit navy, it's fine, you can tell it's blue, but once you add in the blue into the shadows, it just gives that little bit more pop. And I'm not worried about this suit here, because I think it holds the color really well, and the gray suit's doing just fine. So, that I think I'm really happy with. I don't need to bring any warmth, I don't think, into the mid-tones. I've already sort of played around with skin, and this will affect the overall image. Really changes it. No, not something that I need to do today. And highlights, same thing. If I go other end of the spectrum, I don't really think, if I want to add warmth in, I guess I could just very minorly touch my white balance. But I'm pretty happy with that. Great, that's my color grade. Details, I just like to, I keep my sharpening at 40, and I'm just going to ever so slightly mask, because I don't need everything sharpened. I actually really just need it to be kind of them. So, I don't know, 30. If I go all the way up, we start to hit those suits, that texture. So maybe I'll sit it around, if I go to lose it all, somewhere around 50. There we go. You can't really notice it, but especially if I'm even toggling it on and off, you can't really notice it, but you see that it, you know, it does sharpen in areas, but I think it's just a bit too hard to see on a screen. So, but I like to do that. I like to know that it's crisp on the edges, you know? I think it's a personal preference, really. I'm not going to denoise this one, but I am going to denoise my red ones because I shot at an ISO way higher than I needed to without realizing. The ISO here for this is like 320, whereas if I go over to one of the red ones, I had it at 3200. I'd just forgotten to change that, and then because of that, I'd actually pushed my aperture up to 7.1. Now this wasn't bad because it means everyone's in focus, but I don't know if you can see it, but there's a lot of grain there, a lot of digital grain. So I'll probably denoise that, but the white ones, the white backdrops, these are fine. All right, and last thing, I'm not gonna worry about effects, I'm not gonna worry about lens blur, transform, lens corrections. Just gotta make sure I've got my chromatic aberration on. Yeah, I'm not doing any grain or anything like that at the moment. And that's pretty much it for this photo. So as you can see, all I've really done is I've just ever so slightly brought the exposure up, I've ever so slightly warmed up certain parts of the skin and adjusted for certain people that look a bit pale and red, you know, and I've brought the shadows so the hair sticks out. I've changed a little bit of shadows, color in the shadows, so that way this blue suit is actually blue, because that's what it is. And I'm really happy with that. And now I'm pretty much gonna save that. I'm gonna copy that. And that's my clean edit. And I have now just going to paste that on this one. And I'm gonna run all the way down to the end of the white backdrop. I'm just gonna sync it. And I'm pretty much going to do the exact same for the red backdrop. I'll probably use this now as a clean base, and then I'll just adjust for the colors and I'll denoise certain things out. And then finally, I'm going to throw my black and white on to really give them that, you know, rock star band, black and white. There'll be a bit of grain in there, maybe too much because I do go a bit heavy on it. So we'll adjust as we go. But I really hope that you've enjoyed this. I'll put a few of the finished product photos at the end of the red and the black and the white. And if this is something that you've really enjoyed watching this process, this really went over a couple of weeks from, you know, initial idea. You know, you reach out to the band, or they reach out to you, your client, you discuss how that's all going to work, where you're going to do the shoot, what time. You've got to organize 5 people, which is quite a lot. And then you do the shoot, you come back and you got to start editing. And so, yeah, I think it went pretty quick, but I think we did this over about the full envelope of maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. And yeah, now I'll send these off to the band, the client, and you know, if they've got any retouches they would like done, then I'll do that. Another thing that I'll do is I'm going to go in and just check things like, you know, pimples and blemishes, things like that that aren't normally there, and I'll just do a little retouching as well. But that's probably gonna make this video way too long. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some insight into kind of what a day could be when you work with a client. And look, that's it. I'm gonna stop babbling and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, listen, if you really liked the edits that I actually made today and there's something you'd like to play around with, they are completely free. I have no interest in charging for these because they are experimental presets that I made for my photos specifically that I use, and I'm building my own preset folder as I make along the way. So if that's something that you'd like to play around with, down in the description there should be a link to my Google Drive where you can download the black and white grainy studio preset, as well as my Studio Clean, the one that we saw me walk through. So look, if that's what you want, have at it. Anyway, thanks for hanging around to the end of the video.